Blow the roof off. Blow the roof off. Gary Roan.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, right here in this community in Klein, there was an old farmer, an old hillbilly, trying to make a go of it. His name was Jed Clampett, and one day, like he did every day, he walked out to his well, and he raised up his pail of water. But this day was different. He raised up a pail of black gold, Texas tea. You guessed it, he had struck oil. Well, the first thing you knew, old Jed was a millionaire. He moved out to California, and he sold that place off because he was sick of looking at it. He couldn't make a go of it, but he kept the mineral rights. And from a culvert right outside of Meyer Park, just down the road here, he horizontal drilled into that land, and he pumps oil to this very day. Well, he covered that well up, and he put 2x4s there, but he's a hillbilly. He doesn't know how to cap wells too well, so the little slat's different. And he sold it to an obscure German from the old country, Werner von Braun. He had an adopted daughter, an American daughter named Dorothy, with a little dog. And they moved into that house. And they were trying to make a go of it with that land as well. And wouldn't you know it, they had a hard time too. And so to pass the time, because they didn't have much, they took what little money they had, they'd distribute it up, and they'd have a poker game every night. And they'd smoke inside the house. And one night, Dorothy was counting her money with her little dog, Toto, and laughing and giggling. And Werner von Braun disgustedly finished his cigarette, flicked it down, and wouldn't you know it, it rolled right into that well. And Werner von Braun walked out, down his steps, and he got out of the way just in time for that house to see it blow up, all the way up in the air, and Dorothy and the dog went with it too. He looked up, and he forgot the fact that his daughter was up there with her little dog. And he thought to himself, you know what, that is a liquid propellant, and an ignition source, I can make a rocket. And that's how the American Space Agency, NASA, was born. It was from that very occasion. Well, Dorothy was beside herself. She was being catapulted in the air. She was without her father. It was lucky she had her dog. She was closing her eyes, up in a corner. She landed, wouldn't you know it, in a warm, nice house, right through the roof of that house. And she smashed down. She got up ever so slowly. She heard a lot of voices. She looked down, and she had actually smashed into the White House. And wouldn't you know it, she smashed Michelle Obama right under her house. Smashed her flat. And a crowd of people were brushing things off, and they looked around, and one woman walked up, and it was Nancy Pelosi. And she said, Dorothy, I'll get you and your little dog too. She couldn't believe it. She had her dog, and she was cupping her dog, and there was a little munchkin. And it was Dick Nixon. And he had an iPhone app, which was a Wicked Witch Dorothy killer app. And he had taped the whole thing, and he was going to run off and convict her. And she was beside herself. Nobody was talking to her, but finally Ginny Sanford walked up. And she said, Dorothy, honey, don't worry about it. I know how to navigate around Washington scandals. What you need to do is you need to find the Wizard of Washington. He'll get you through this mess. And to help you out, I fixed you up with 3 guys who really know how to come back and really know how to get back in the public scene. Willie Nelson, Rudy Giuliani, and anybody you pick from out here in Washington, D.C. So she and Toto walked up and down Pennsylvania Avenue with their guests and their fellow travelers. And Toto was yapping away. They ended up at the Treasury. And wouldn't you know it, Toto started grabbing the leg of one man in the Treasury, and it happened to be Alan Greenspan. He was the one who was doing this all these years. And he said, Dorothy, I'm going to set you up with a low-interest loan, and you can get back to your dad, and there's going to be no problem. She said, look, sir, I'm having a hard time getting off the gold standard. Can you help me out? He thought about it, and he said, you know what? I think I'm going to demonstrate fiscal responsibility, and I'm going to get a paper route. Just then, Lance Armstrong rode up with his bicycle, and he gave them a pump. They delivered newspapers, the Wall Street Journal, around the whole eastern seaboard, and they ended up finally in France. They tried to deliver these newspapers in French, but the French people decided that Lance Armstrong should only use his bike for sporting interests, not commercial interests. So they fined him, they impounded his bike, and they had to find another way to make money. That's when they ran into Gore Vidal and Al Gore. And Al Gore said, hey, I invented the internet. I know how we can do this. I Nigerian prince who has his interests offshore. All I have to do is loan him $10,000. He'll refund me 10, and we can go and give Dorothy back her money. Well, they ended up near the coast, and they ended up getting in a cruise venture because they figured out they couldn't get enough money. They cruised back to America. They ended up at the Kennedy compound with 3/4 of the Kennedy family and getting into politics. And they said, Dorothy, if you work and you earn enough money and you pay into your old paper route, by the time you die, your grandchildren may just get back to home.